Hey YouTube, I don't have a video for today. What I was going to do was, actually what happened was I was trying to, after my great success paint job this week on, this week on the Green Pacifica, I went and did a buckfast caster telecaster, which I was meant to do, which my plan was I was going to finish it off this morning and then do a video of it tonight and then put it up for sale. But overconfidence got on and I kind of made an arse of the paint job. It's just like, I really don't like painting guitars. So I mean, a couple of folk have actually asked me how much I charge for painting them and stuff, and it's like, I need more practice. It's not as easy. My confidence went right through the roof with that green one because it turned out so well. And when the bucky casters are all right, but they're kind of more of a joke guitar anyway. You know what I mean? You know, the fact that the paint's maybe a little bit lumpy, and I think apparently some of them is chipping off a bit as well, which I didn't know about. My pal told me that when he bought one. I think the paint has reacted with the lacquer. I think maybe the lacquer I'm using is a different type of paint that's got something in it that makes the paint that's in below it go soft or squidgy or something, but whatever. Anyway, so I was going to do a wee video, like a sort of technique-y type thing, all about why you should play with a click track. So basically just play with a click track, but then, and I was kind of trying to work out what I was going to do, and the problem is that, see, when I actually work out what I'm going to do, not writing a script, but kind of sort of in my head having some sort of script, I just get lost, and it ends up being nothing. So instead, I'm going to have a sort of weekly roundup thing, which I might never do again, but if how well it goes. And I was looking at the, of the guitars that I've done this week, because there's often things that I forgot to mention, and folk ask questions, and sometimes it's hard to, I can't really give a good answer in a wee stupid text message. It's like sometimes I want to be able to go, no, well, there's a little bit more to it than that. So what I did was I looked up the channel comments, which I normally reply to, well, I try to reply to. Another thing I've noticed is that, if say you comment on the video, right, it comes up in my I haven't replied to file. So I look at that, there you go, and I go, alright, there you go, blah, 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 and then you ask a follow-up comment. I don't get any notification that you've given me a follow-up comment, so anyone who's ever asked me a question after the initial question and didn't get a reply, it's not because I'm dinging you, it's just because I didn't realise you'd done that. Occasionally I was finding them, when I'm looking through old comments and stuff like that, so I'm now going to have to start a new process of checking once a week just to make sure that I've not got any sort of things hanging there where people think I've just not wanted to answer or dinged them. The only reason I'm playing a guitar is just because it feels a bit silly standing here without one. I couldn't be a singer in a band. Apart from the lack of the ability to sing really well, it's more along the lines of I couldn't just stand there. What you do with your hands? You sort of coil the mic goes up and holds it in your hand, and then no. So having a guitar gives me something to hide behind. This is my Kramer Focus, which I just I did a video of it about a month ago or something like that. It's been sitting in bits for 5 years. So basically this guitar's never been played since I got it. Not since I got it working, so I was just having a wee bit of this is one I was going to try and do the click track thing with. Basically, I might do that later, but having a click track's a great concept, which I wish I'd started using earlier on, because I was already in bands and stuff before I'd ever even had a click track. It wasn't until I started trying to record stuff on my own, on my ADAT, maybe about a few years ago, that I had to use the click track just so that everything fitted in. Otherwise, what happens is if you're doing multi-track recording, the first track, that sounds alright, and then you put the bass on, and it's kind of starts to waver a little bit because you're sort of compensating for slight mistakes in the original track, and then by the time you get to sort of a couple of overdubs, or 3 or 4, everything's just out of sync because you're trying to compensate for the fact that you missed the timing the first time, and then the second time you're slightly off again, and it's like you end up with just kind of bleh, just with a mess. So basically, learn to use a click track. I've got one set up here. Oh, my loop pedal does it. I've been using my wee Moore drummer pedal, which is a fantastic thing. Instead of just listening to that, this Jamman pedal has got a basic click track, and there's like 10 options for what it sounds like. One of them is just like a kick drum going boom boom, just doing that, and then that's just like someone sitting there with a hi-hat, isn't it? So it's just good to be able to But you don't need to play always on the beat, you know. That gets pretty boring pretty quickly. It means that you've got something to aim for at the end of your... It actually ends up doing bloody click track thing. Right, I'll stop it. If anyone wants to hear that, I might do it later. Go on to the questions. Yeah, so I've got them up here. Hold on, what have we got? So this is just a kind of review. Oh, the wee red Strat. My pal Scott's got his Sunn Mustang Strat. If you look in the comments there, a couple of folk have commented on it with a bit more history on the Sunn Mustangs, which I don't really know anything about. I didn't look them up because it wasn't my guitar. See, that's the thing. I'm much more into the guitars that I own. Doesn't matter how good a guitar it is or anything or how much I like it. If it's mine, I will look it up. Whereas if it's not mine, it's like, you know, I don't have the same interest to me to look it up. So there's some interesting Fender Mustang stuff if you're looking. I ended up doing 2 videos of that because I just delayed one of them, so I didn't put 2 videos out in one night. I should probably have kept the second one till tonight, then I wouldn't have to do this. So that's Scott's loving his guitar. There you go. Someone's talking about the Yamaha Pacifica. The Pacifica is an excellent guitar. I'm really pleased with that. That was a good one. If you're not trying to match the headstock, my reason for not trying to, I would have done the headstock, but what I tried to do that time, because the guitar was silver anyway, the plan was to do, well, actually, by complete coincidence, this is a sort of candy apple red type thing. Was what they do with this is you put like a silver, the guitar, it's got a silver base coat, and then you put sort of translucent red on the top, which gives it that metallic-y sheen to it. So I tried to do that, and it worked with the Pacifica, but it didn't have a silver headstock. It was just wood headstock, so it would have gone. The problem with the fluoro paint is it goes very matte. If you've got it just on wood, it doesn't. You know, it kind of looks chalky almost. Whereas on the silver, it looked amazing. So that's why I didn't do the headstock. Auric Bike, who said that? Yeah. What else we got? What else we got? Talking about the Yamaha. Oh, and just someone saying I'm brilliant. Someone say I wish I could play this good, and it's like that's why one of the reasons I was talking about the click track, because really I'm not very good in the guitar, but I can wing it quite well, and one of the reasons I can wing it is because of that click track. Because even if you're not using the click track, once you've been playing, well, let's be honest, I've been playing along with a click track for years, or not a click track, but you know, like a very simple drum pattern. It just means that when you're playing along in a band, you've got much more confidence. So rather than, you'll notice I make a lot of mistakes in the notes I play, but I rarely make a mistake on when the note comes in. So that's the thing. So if you're, you know, as long as you're completely committed to it, you know, doing your sort of all those notes seem to be good. Hold on. I'm just trying to find a note that sounds crap. There you go. I can't even hit it because it's not in my natural where my hand automatically goes. If you play it at exactly the right time and are a bit committed to it, you get away with it, because then the next time you know I won't play that note next time. Do you know what I mean? So it's like if you know when the note comes, which should be quite easy. When I was in the studio with a couple of different bands. Actually, I was playing with a guy who was a sort of sleazy punk band. He called it sleazy rock. Sort of maybe sort of Guns N' Roses, or maybe just because he kind of looked a bit like Duff McKagan, or he had his haircut. And then a Led Zeppelin band, and it was like not really. I didn't learn any of the songs. I just went in, and it was just because I kind of knew when I was meant to hit the note. That was half the battle. You know, it's like, okay, it was the wrong note sometimes, but the chances are sometimes it's a harmony. Quite a lot of the time it's a harmony, you know what I mean? So if you're meant to be playing that note, and you accidentally play that note, you get away with it. It's only when you play the wrong note that but even then you just don't do it next time. But you always, because you've always got the click, it's like dun 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 dun, oh dun 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 dun. That's the one. Now just do that one next time. Do you know what I mean? This might be talking absolute gibberish. See what happens. Right. So where are we going? Still the Yamaha Pacifica, Sunn Mustang. What else did I do this week? I had quite a lot of comments on the Pacifica actually. Someone asking me if I liked Dan Electro guitars, and it's like, yes, I love the idea of a Dan Electro. See when they came out in the 50s or the 60s, and you had this guitar that was like specially designed and it was really basic. You know, it was really basic tuners. The body's kind of made of hardboard, sort of MDF type stuff. You know, it's got like a masking tape around the outside instead of binding, and the bridge is just a piece of wood, and the pickup's just an old lipstick tube. It's lipstick pickups. It was actually just cases from lipstick from the factory next door to the, you know, so actually it was the same. That's why it's called lipstick tube, not just because it looks like it, because that's what they originally were. But the whole idea of putting together a really cheap guitar, but actually it has character and stuff. I love that idea, but I wish in the original time, you know, when it cost, I don't know, a tenth as much, a quarter as much, whatever it is, of like a Fender or something like that, brilliant. But now they're not cheap. You know, it's like, even if you see a vintage one, obviously they can be £1,000, and it's not wanting that. And even when they reissued them and stuff like that, they're never cheap. I think it's maybe just because they're really cool. You know, everyone kind of wants one. You know, Jimmy Page plays one, even though he's in Led Zeppelin, the biggest band in the world, and you know all that stuff, and he's playing like a $50 Dan Electro for whatever, Cashmere and stuff like that. It's, if it was $50, like, yeah, brilliant, but they're not. And it's like, I just don't really want to pay a few £100 for a guitar that's meant to be a cheapie. So that's really my reason for not having any Dan Electros. There's a few that I quite like though, but it's more on the sort of the basic thing. If they'd made more of them maybe, and you could get them cheaper, I'd be all over them. Yeah, so that's my views on Dan Electro. That's why I don't have any. Try to think if I have played one before. I don't think it was a particularly old one. It wasn't one of the ones that was hardboard. It was kind of in the 90s or the 2000s. They were released, and they were basically just a sort of Korean or Chinese squirey type thing, but shaped. The outline was sort of like a Dan Electro, as opposed to being, you know, like the really cheap and stuff, which I quite liked. So, no Dan Electros. What else we got? Someone commenting the fact to use the word bow hair as a very small measurement. That's a technical term, bow hair. Yeah. I had someone ask me if the Pacifica's got a compound fretboard, and after delving into it a bit, I had a link with someone talking about a £1,000 Pacifica, like the one the green one's like a 112. So like the first number in a Yamaha serial number doesn't work all the time, but works for a lot of them. It's kind of what pricey range you're talking about. So like a 1 series is sort of 100 and something quid, like a 3 series would be 300 and something quid, and a 7 series will be 700 and something quid. Sort of, maybe not exactly that, but you know, in that sort of ballpark. So he was looking at like a really expensive one, and by the time you go up, you do get Pacificas, you know, up at £1,000 and £2,000 and stuff like that, and they will have, you know, special handmade pickups and ebony and all this stuff. Unfortunately, the problem with that is though, I think you can probably actually get them quite cheap now, because the thing is that you buy that and it still kind of looks like a Pacifica, which is the cheap guitar, or the common guitar that everyone's got, and you're like, well, if you're going to spend £1,000 or £2,000 on a guitar, then you want one that looks completely different and unique, or completely the same, like people want their Les Paul and their Strat, as opposed to having this sort of off-brandy type thing. Yamaha have always done that. I've got a guitar called a Session 2 820, which is 8 series, so it'd be £800 odd thing. This thing is it's a fantastically high-end guitar, and it costs, you know, like £200 or something like that, or I can't remember exactly. Far cheaper than it should be, you know, compared to its original price. When it was new, it was the same price as like a Les Paul, or probably even more expensive than a Les Paul when it was out in 1986. Not that Les Pauls in 1986 were probably that good, but it was more expensive than that. And now an 86 Les Paul will be a couple of grand, and you can pick it up for, you know, a few £100 for the Yamaha. So the resale value is maybe not that good. The thing that always annoyed me about that is that I'm doing videos from this week was the Yamaha SG 200 that I had, which the same guy owned the Sunn Mustang actually. It's really really good, but in that video I was talking about the high end, the SG 1500 and the 2000s, which are kind of more, the sort of Les Pauly carved top binding, more that sort of high end thing. That's the sort of thing that one of those guitars is still worth £1,000, a couple of grand, whereas the Yamaha Session 2 I've got was at the same price as that in 1986, and now it's not worth anything. So it's like, there is a point of, if you're going to be buying new things, basically buying the best guitar isn't always the cleverest thing to do if you look on in 10 years time or 20 years time, because the resale value will not be the same. That's kind of why, recommending people to buy guitars, I suppose it works well with the Yamaha Pacifica. If you're buying one of them second hand, because second hand they're quite cheap. New, they're 180 quid, and the problem is if you buy a Yamaha Pacifica 180 quid, or the Squire, I don't know, Classic Vibe Strat or whatever, the Yamaha's a better guitar. It just is, in every single way. But in a year's time, the Yamaha will have halved in value, and the Strat, because it's a Strat, people want a Strat, it's a Squire Strat, it'll only have lost, it'll be 3/4 of its value. So it's, there is a payoff, and that works an awful lot with these types of guitars. These are starting to go up now, but if at the time, instead of buying that, you bought a Gibson Les Paul, that would be like a £2,000 guitar sitting in the wall. So it's maybe not the best one. Actually, in the comments, no it wasn't, it was on Facebook, there was someone talking about, I've got this West Tone, which has got things on top of it, I can't pick it up. Anyway, and he was talking about, he bought like a 1984 West Tone, which is the same as the one I got, and it was like 300 quid, something like that. In 1986, it took him 2 years to pay it off in the shop. And he was raving at how he's got like a Gibson Les Paul and a 70s Strat and stuff like that, and the West Tone's a better guitar. And as I said, it was like, I think it was 300 quid or something like that he paid in 1984, because that was what the price was. Now, it's still only worth 300 quid. Whereas it's a better guitar, but people don't want it. Yeah, a bit sidetracked. I'm actually finding talking shit without actually talking about any subject is really easy. That's 17 minutes already. So I might not do these again. Now someone asked me how much I charge for a repaint. I'm not comfortable enough doing it. I do know that I remember someone paying 200 quid to get their Epiphone Les Paul painted about 20 years ago, and it was like, but the guitar only cost 200 quid new. It's like, and you spent £200 on paint. It's up to you. A lot of people do stuff like that. They'll buy and you see people do it with that the Hello Kitty guitar, which used to be cheap crap when they came out, the Squire Hello Kitty, and folk put like Seymour Duncan Invaders and bare knuckle pickups in it, and Gold Off Floyd Roses and Lockheed tuners, and they spend £500 worth of parts to put on a guitar that's not was £100 new. It's like, just because it doesn't make sense to me, I wouldn't do it. I'm really stingy. It's like, ultimately I'm really stingy. That's kind of why I buy the guitars I do. Is that the Washburn Wonderbar bridge? Alright, I'm talking about, this is the Marlin State of the Art guitar, which is the BBR one, which actually I should probably put for sale tonight. Yes, I will. I'll put that on eBay tonight, actually. Because in that one, the bridge, I said it was like a collar that collapsed. Someone's commented, is that the Washburn Wonderbar that's made of silver camembert? I quite like the silver camembert, actually. But no, it's not. A Washburn Wonderbar is a solid thing. I've got one built like a tank. It'll still be going in Mad Max times, you know what I mean? I don't know if people will still play guitar, but this thing is absolutely solid. It's, I should probably do a video just on that. I put it on my BC Rich bitch because it had damage from having previously had a collar, and I figured if I stuck my Wonderbar on top of it, it fills in the gap, which is quite, which is easy. But Wonderbars are fun. I can see where he's sort of seen that because it's got the brass rollers on it. Wonderbar's got brass rollers on it as well. Interesting tremolo. Yeah, we're talking about back on the Marlin again. Saying that the Marlin Sidewinder was the best selling guitar in the mid '80s, and he's saying like they were okay, and there's like a lot of people. There's like a few comments on it saying, "Oh, I had one of them and it was fucking awful," and it's like this guy's like, it's like it was fine, and it's the reason how he's saying that is because in 1985, the thought of paying like 150 quid and getting a guitar that actually worked was a total bargain. So you were actually getting like a real guitar, whereas if you go back to, you know, the 70s and you're looking at, you know, your people are not going to like this, but the Audition type guitars and the really, really cheap guitar, even Strat copies and stuff like that, they were still 150 quid, but they were dung and it wasn't really a guitar. You know, even brand spanking new and set up, the tuners were utter pish. You know, the wood it was made of was just shocking, and the pickups were, you know, made of tin foil, and, you know, everything on it was just basically crap. It wasn't an actual instrument that you could go in and play and it noticeably be all right. I mean, a Marlin Sidewinder, you know, if you're playing a gig with that, people are going to see it, but it's not going to be visible. It's not going to be completely obvious to everyone else watching it that, my God, and the guitar, you know, pure out of tune and sounds like pish. It's not going to be like that. It might not sound quite as good as a good guitar, but it's still an actual guitar, you know, a functional item. So that was kind of, I think, where the Marlin came in, because before that you didn't really have that option. You did have that option once you got up to like £250, £300. You started getting your Squire Strats and stuff like that. And saying that, at that time, Westone were kicking about, but maybe they weren't quite as cheap as that. I don't know, and people don't, you know, as I always say, a lot of these things, people don't want guitars that shape because that's not what Jimi Hendrix played, that's not what Jimmy Page played. You know, they want a Les Paul or a Strat copy rather than having an original design, regardless of how good the guitar is. GDR is East Germany. Yes, I knew that. The German Democratic Republic. I remember I said it in the video. That I think I said it was West Germany, but obviously West Germany's West Germany before it became just Germany. Yeah. Sidewinder, it was junk. So I did Gutless, never stayed in tune. Well, there you go. It's like, I think a lot of that, there might be an element of luck in whether you actually got a good one as well. I mean, I remember my pal having one when I started playing the guitar. It was a silver thing with a sort of Floyd Rose type thing on it, and I didn't like it at all. It was dead heavy and dead chunky and felt dead when you played it. It didn't have any springiness to it. It might, but then you go back to, you know, probably 25 years ago. Maybe I'm old enough for that. Between 20 and 25 years ago, but I don't know, maybe he'd put the wrong strings on it. Maybe it wasn't set up. So it's like, kind of, in hindsight, looking back, it's something I thought was terrible. Because, I mean, my first bass was a Westone Spectrum DX, and I absolutely hated it. I think I bought it for 30 quid and then sold it for 20 quid as soon as I could afford money to buy another one, because it was just absolute crap. And then, you know, 10, 15 years later, I started, Westone, nice, I went out with fucking off one and I played a Westone that was working. It's like, this is amazing. That's why I've got about half a dozen of them. They're really good. So I just didn't like it, but a lot of that was to do with just the way it looked. It just looked so 80s, and I used to hate the 80s back when I was, you know, younger. I was all into the Zeppelin and the Sabbath and stuff like that. And sort of 70s was rocking, and 60s. I used to, my favourite music was always between sort of 66 and 72 or 73, whatever it was. There's a sort of 5-year band where you just get, like, you know, the best of the Led Zeppelin and Creedence and Purple and Sabbath and the Beatles and the Stones, and everyone just seems to be a pure amazing period of music, which I still agree with. Someone talking about my bass restoration video. That's this one here. I'm waiting. The reason it's been hanging on the wall, this is the Vulture bass. It's had a bad spray paint job. Actually, not quite as bad as the one that I just failed with on the Bucky Telecaster today, yesterday. I think maybe, to be honest, I maybe just didn't let it dry long enough. I was very careful with that green one to leave it like 48 hours before I started putting bits on it, so it didn't end up with fingerprints. So this has been badly painted red, and I have since been at it with white spirit and elbow grease, basically, and what I did was I ordered paint stripper to try and make it a bit easier, but I just wanted to see what it was like in below it, and it's still got the logo on the headstock, the serial number on the back. It's 79, which is nice, and you can see that in below the horrible red paint, it is a tobacco sunburst, which, and another issue I've got is because I kind of used a scouring pad, or not a scouring pad, you know, one of those sponges with the sort of rough side used for dishes, that and the white spirit is kind of really, really scratchy. Whether it was scratchy below, it's possible someone, sandpapered it up before they painted it so the paint stuck better, or whether it's just my scouring pad that's done it. That's why I'm waiting for paint stripper. And as usual, when you're waiting for something like that, and that was 2 weeks ago, it was meant to arrive last Monday, and it's like, this is sitting on the wall, I really want to get it working, and then it hasn't arrived, obviously. I just want to see, and also, I know from experience of trying to take paint off guitars, all these wee fidgety bits in here are not fun. I'm not too bad doing, when you can actually get some action going, when you can get a bit like that, whereas when you're doing this wee bit in here, you're like that, and it's just annoying. The way I always end up doing that sort of thing is I'm sitting watching a film, so I watch the film and just don't think about it. And then check back every couple of minutes, and just your hand goes numb after about half an hour, and it's alright. So I'm really looking forward to getting this running, and then I'll be able to do my washburn wings video. Someone also asked me what it was. Someone asked what the guitar above the Laney was. I think it might have been this one. I don't know which is the guitar above the Laney, directly above the Laney. I think from there, directly above the Laney is this one. This being a Washburn Hawk, which is actually the guitar version of the Vulture bass. This one's in, I think the technical name for it, they always give these things amazing names, like Desert Yellow and Dakota Yellow even is one I'm thinking of, and all these fantastic colours. This one is brown. So they went for this amazing translucent coffee table look, and they called this colour brown. You gotta love the Japanese sometimes. Yeah, so I will be doing a video of all the wings again. I did one when I got that, actually when I got the Hawk, because that's the most recent one I've got. I don't know, a year and a half ago, something like that. And then I was going to wait, and then now that I've got the full set, I was going to do a video of all of them, all nice, and then sort of maybe edit it. Not edit it, obviously. I can't edit stuff, doesn't appeal to me. Yeah, we're going, okay, yeah, I'm just talking away. East German Marlin just have the truss rod thing in there. Yes, I knew that because I had one. Same thing as what modern Charvels have, sort of, apart from a much, much cheaper looking version of it. It was made of a crazy wood, that East German guitar. It didn't have the Marlin logo in the headstock anymore when I had it, but a few folk told me it was a Marlin, and now that kind of seals the deal that it was, because I looked up Marlin and it said they were the first year, whatever it was, a Slammer it was called, was made of that. But it was made from wood from the forest in East Germany, and I think they made all the components as well, because they were obviously communists, so they're not allowed to import stuff. Someone talking about hondos. These are the messages that I didn't reply to because I didn't realise someone had replied back. That's the same advert talking about 71 bass G. Everyone just assumed that they just manufactured in the same factory. I've got a Hondo P bass made by Tokai, and I used to think all Hondos were shite, and it's like, yeah, Hondos is another video in itself, but Hondos were pretty shite. I had a Les Paul. If you search back my videos a couple of years, I had a Les Paul, and it's like, you can see me really struggling to lie about it and say it's alright. I never say it's alright, I'm just kind of going, yeah, so it's like kind of trying not just to go, I fucking hate this. I think I sold it for 40 quid. It was one of those ones that sometimes you get a guitar and you go, oh, it's pure great, but you need to put new pickups in it because they're not very good. Oh, it's pure great, but the tuners aren't very good. This one was just like, everything on it was pants. The tuners were awful. The pickups were those fake single coil behind a humbucker cover, which, to be honest, sometimes sound good. Not these ones. The pots had all rotted because they were completely crap, so they didn't work at all. The bridge was made of what did you call it? Silver camembert, like whatever kind of, I think it was a tunematic bridge. It was a silver camembert bridge, and the body was just like a slab of. It's like, not to diss plywood guitars. Plywood guitars are pretty good. I mean, they sound fine. They're maybe a little bit heavy sometimes, but quite a lot of the time when you get a plywood guitar, it's plywood, yes, as in it's many layers of wood, but it's like a quality type of plywood. Whereas this Hondo was made of the stuff you buy in B&Q. It's like really air gaps in it and shit like that. It's just like, it's pure scalfy. horrendous. So Hondo were really bad. I don't know when they stopped making the really bad ones. I know that in 1980 they were aware that the guitars were making were pish, so they contracted some Japanese companies to make a couple of ranges of professional series. So they made like a sort of, actually one is a wee bit the same shape as a Yamaha SG. It's quite a thick sort of Les Paul double cutty type bass and guitar. There's a few guitars. There's actually a guitar that's actually Les Paul shaped, which I quite fancy. The professional series made in Japan by Matsumoku, and at the same time they did there's a Fender lead to is there a Strat? A Telly? I'm not sure if there's a Strat and a Telly. There's definitely a P bass, and they were made by Tokai. And what Hondo did was, for like a year or 2 years, they got these guitars made in, and then because I think they were getting it, can we come around and have a look at the factory just to make sure you're doing it right? And they went round with a notepad and wrote down how to make good guitars. So once they stopped making getting the Japanese ones, from then on, Hondos were actually all right, actually pretty good. I had a Hondo Bitch made by Samick, and it was a good guitar. In fact, I've got this is going to be a fucking long video. Fuck it. And I swear. I try not to swear in the videos, but if you've got this far anyway, you know it. Yeah, the guitar that started me off on all of this, I might have talked about, was a Hondo Telecaster that I bought in cash converters, just because it looked really cool. It had a pointy headstock, which I wasn't that keen on, but the body was like bound top, solid ash body, and it had like a leopard skin coloured scratch plate, which later on I found out was very similar to what Prince had on his Telecaster. And this guitar was, I was looking at it, and I remember it being 30 quid in cash converters, and I remember saying to the guys, like, oh, it's like, see if it had been 20 quid, I would totally just have bought it, no problems. If it had been 40 quid, I wouldn't have even been looking at it. But 30, you've pure priced it really well. And he was like, you're right. And I was like, would you take 25? He's like, no, it just came in today. So I was like, right, okay. So I went out and had a fag when I was thinking about it. So I hold it for 10 minutes, and then across the road from that's Guitar, and I went into Guitar and looked at a Fender Badger telly at 750 quid, and it was pretty much the same. Or quality wise, it wasn't miles away from the £30 Hondo. So I bought the £30 Hondo, got it home, played it, and then since then I've not been even looking really at Fenders, Gibsons, Epiphones, because you can buy these crazy makes where you can get a pure amazing guitar for sod all. I don't think you would get that. Maybe in the last few years since YouTube started coming in, idiots like me keep doing videos of them saying they're good. I don't think you can pick them up for sort of 30 quid, but there's a chance. And my point was, I was getting a guitar that was as good as, if not better than, like the guitars I was gigging with, you know, like my Epiphone SG and stuff like that. It was 250 quid, and this was in every way good, in some ways better. And then gradually I went on to Japan, and Japanese are even better. You know, so you're talking about guitars that are better than, you know, £2,000 guitars you can buy new. It's like picking up for 200 quid. If you get one that's ugly enough and that nobody wants, you know, like a pure crazy shaped one, but not crazy shaped that somebody famous played. It's got to be crazy shaped that no one famous ever played, therefore ends up being nuts. I'm still going through these videos. Marlon, someone else got a BBR Telly, Honor, and I think Marlon and Honor, yes, I had a Honor Strat that was blue with binding on it, which had the same tuners. It's a similar sort of vibe to that. So Honor, Marlon, at one point Honor bought Marlon 1988 or something like that, so there is a crossover, and I'd imagine his BBR Telly is probably made right next door to my Ibanez RS copy. I'm sure it's pretty good. So Sunn Mustang, people liking the Sunn Mustang. It's getting a wee bit of love. It's good. Someone talking about my Greg Bennett Flying V. Oh, the Washburn MG40. I was really surprised at that because I'd never even looked at those sort of things. That's a 1993. My pal was in the Anthrax tribute band using it, and it was a surprisingly good guitar. It wasn't mad enough for me. It was like a lot of these things suffer a wee bit from blandness. I mean, even something like this, you know, this is like, I suppose, probably quite a cool. It's a Kramer, so it's got the super brand, the brand snobbiness on it as well, and even more so, it's a Kramer. It's a Japanese one, so it's got even more brand snobbiness, but for me it was just a red Strat, and then it's like, so that's why I ended up putting in a, just get like acoustic options to make it a little bit more exciting. In fact, when it's HH coil splits and stuff, just to try and jazz it up a little bit. Good fun, good fun. Post CV, yeah. Someone suggesting Jez 47 talking about using a spacer block to set the Floyd. I do know what he's talking about. I've done that before. Sword guitars. That was a while ago. If you looked up my, I wonder if no, I've only got one. At the time when I did that video, I had 3, because I had one that I made for a Project Ray video, which was a band I was in with Jesse Ray. Although at that time Jesse Ray wasn't in it, I just made it in an afternoon, took like 2 hours. And I remember when I actually did like a wee video in my room, and the paint, you had to sort of play it without touching the body, because the paint was still, I just gave it a quick slap of varnish and the paint was still sticky. So you can see us playing it, and we're kind of like, yeah. And then I built a 6-string bass when we actually started playing with Jesse Ray, and I gave it to him the last time I saw him. He was like, oh, would you sell me the Claymore bass? I was like, no, I'll never sell you it, so I just gave it to him. And I also made one for a mad artist dude down in Newcastle, which is like it started off as a bit of skirting board. He was a, what do you call it, a noise artist. You know, like mad arty folk. They sit there with like a sort of delay pedal and a looper. He just kind of went, yeah, and then sort of breathed into a mic and then looped it. Brilliant. So this thing was it was like a skirting board, and the strings ran along the top and the bottom, and one of them was fretted, so it was like a fretted 1-string E on the top that you played with your thumb, and on the bottom it was a fretless A string, I think. And it was like, completely nuts. I had a scaffold batting as a handle. If that sounds fun, type in sword guitars and search in the video, you'll find that. That was fun. I think that's us through it. Oh, the Ibanez as well with the D-tuner. Would you make a video about why you like SG and Washburn stuff so much from Super Hours? You can call me sir. So yes, I will do that. I'll explain why I like Washburn so much, and SG. I think the short answer is I like these because they look amazing, and the SG was because it looks amazing. I think it's the best of the sort of classic guitars if you're a little bit evil like I am, you know, like, because the SG for me it was like everyone good, and also it's a little bit more odd than a Les Paul. I've never liked a Les Paul. I don't actually own a Les Paul unless you class these as sort of double cut Les Paul, but not really a Les Paul, I don't think. I think just because they were common, and I'm a bit one of those weirdos that just likes things because nobody else does. You know, if everyone else likes something, I won't. No, I'm different. Not the best way to be, but it's just the way it is sometimes. And the SG was Robbie Krieger, Tony Iommi, George Harrison in the Paperback Writer video. Paperback Writer? Rain? Both of them video. Angus Young. Blah, 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 blah. More. Lots of them. Great. I think this is me kind of out them. No, okay. Before I got into this one, the Ibanez D-tuner. I will have a guitar coming. One of them, a bit more time on it because my pal's got one. He says in his parts box for years, he'd never found any use for it. It worked really well. It wasn't quite as easy. What I was doing with it, I was kind of trying to play, you know, kind of going an E diddly 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 D diddly 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 E diddly. It's not really meant for that. It's not quite as quick as that. It's a bit more of a sort of chunk, which is fine doing it between songs. You know, it's like you've got a couple of minutes to do it. If you're trying to do it on the fly, the way I was between verse and chorus, you know, like verse and E and then chorus D, it's a little bit more of a sort of chunk as opposed to being up here. So fun to be had, but I mean, as a technical thing, it worked brilliantly, and it's, mind you, it's actually quicker than just going boo. It's probably much safer, because obviously if you just go boo, it's like, are you right? And as soon as you turn that down to D, you're changing, you know, just because it's in D right now, as soon as you hit it hard, it might move a little bit over the nut because it's moved, and it's like, and then you're out and you've got to try and tune it after the first 2 notes that you realise are wrong. So the song's already started, you played the intro, it sounded awful, and you've got to manually try and tune that to G to D or back up to E. Yeah. Washburn Wing series, really got the bass side, did that. I need to keep an eye out for one of those wing series. I wonder if they still make them. No, they don't. These ones were made, the early ones by a company called Yamaha were made in the early 80s. I think they started about 78. They're quite rare in 78, but sort of 79 to 83. You get these Yamaha ones from 84. They get taken over by Tushin, who also built. They might have built this. No, this is an ESP, I believe. They built the Jacksons that I had a couple of weeks ago. The Jackson Professional Series, Proline Series, Profile Series, P something series, and other ones round about the sort of late 90s. It was Tushin before they closed down apparently. Built the wings from 84 to 86, I think, and then they didn't make them anymore, and then they reissued them in the early 90s or at some point in the 90s. They were made by Samick in Korea, who at the time, they made the Hondos I was talking about earlier on, and they also made Epiphone. So my Epiphone SG is a Samick built one, and the Epiphone Les Pauls, the ones that are kind of desirable now. People say, "Oh, it's like this is one of the amazing Korean ones." Those ones, so you can get a washburn wing, which is basically an Epiphone Les Paul, a sort of 90s Epiphone Les Paul, but it's that shape. And it's got, instead of having that sort of bridge, it's got the sort of the Tunematic type bridge, and it's got it's really the only big difference. These things are all neck through and stupid construction, whereas this is just basically just if you just imagine it being an Epiphone Les Paul but a different shape. I would possibly buy one if anyone's going to try and sell me one or trade one for something. I might be interested just out of curiosity's sake for a sort of 90s Samick wing series. I don't know. I don't think they had the names when they came back in the 90s. I don't know if they were like the Hawk and the Raven and the Falcon. I think it was an SB something. It was like an SB50 and an SB20 or whatever it is. I think that was what they were called, as opposed to actually being, the cool bird names. There's another range in there somewhere as well, which are kind of more like these with the neck through and stuff like that. But I mean, the thing about these is there's no information on them, so it's like I've seen them with it's these sort of odd looking ones, and then there was a 2012 reissue, I think, which looks very much. There's definitely, I don't know if it's a white eagle. There's definitely a black eagle, which looks very much like that. I'm not sure it's neck through. But that's your wings if you're thinking about trying to get a washburn wing. Basically, if you can get one, try and get that one or that one. I think. I still think that's the first one I got. I still think that's the coolest one, the Falcon. And if it looks like that, well, if it looks like that, it might not necessarily be a Yamaha one. If it looks exactly like that, then it is. It's one of the Yamaha ones, so it's excellent. 40 minutes. Oh man, I don't know if YouTube's going to cut me off. I think I've actually cut. I think that's me. Have I talked about all the videos I did this week? We're now talking about this. Is now people talking about videos. Oh, look at the big double neck telly. That was my telly Tuesday, and then yeah. So I've not done anything with that yet. I don't know what to do with it. It's really it's of no use to me. I mean, I've already got the Ibanez. My Super Star Destroyer, which is the one that used to hang on the wall up there. If you go back, before I knew the Vulture was coming, I had the double neck hanging there, so it's got two hooks on the wall, because I made that. That kind of sorted the problem that I had with that one, with it being unbelievably heavy, and see having the two necks in line, it's not great. Whereas the one I made, the bass, the nuts are in line, so the guitar's here and the bass is kind of here. You know what I mean? So the bridge and the guitar's here and the bridge and the bass is here, which means it sits like that, and it's unbelievably comfy compared to everything else multi-necked I've ever played. Especially I had it was a Gibson one, I think. I mean, I can't remember. I think I sold it for 130. I think someone's double neck guitar, 50 quid on Gumtree, and I'm having that. And it was like, I think it was I even had the Gibson and the heads. I think I actually did a sand off the Gibson logo. I think I did something to it, so because it'd been. But you get fakes and fakes. Going off at another tangent. There we go. I'll get it within 50 minutes. This was a Gibson, but there was no way you would ever mistake it for being a good guitar. I think it was maybe some sort of kit, because I mean you could just look at it and it just looked crap. You know, it's like the wood was just, it just looked rubbish. It didn't look expensive. You know, it's not like, oh, to the untrained eye, it's to any eye, or anyone who's got fingers to feel it. You would know that this is not an expensive item. It was basically a piece of wood that had been carved to look like a guitar, not to be a guitar. Those sort of chipsons I don't really have that much of a problem with. Same with that. My pal still got that one for sale actually. The, what do you call it one? The one with the ridiculous, the over elaborate fretboard and the, you know, the super veneer on it and stuff like that. That sort of thing. I'm not really that bothered about that one either, because it's obviously a fake as well, because you're going to be buying it for, I think he wants 200 quid for 250 quid. You know that's not a £10,000 Gibson. Where it does become difficult is with my Telecaster from Tele Tuesday a few weeks ago, the one I bought in China, because, not talking about fooling people, you could, if I didn't know it was, you could have fooled me, basically, because it's got, you know, the logo's in below the lacquer, because it's not like it's had a transfer stuck on it. It's like they were building it with the Fender logo on it, so it looks in below the lacquer. It's got the serial numbers. All the parts are branded. You know, I mean, I would pass it off, and it's, especially on a 5-minute thing. You know, it's not going to be immediately obvious that this is not a £1,000 Fender. I suppose you would look at it and maybe, you know, the grain in the wood's a little bit sort of slightly odd looking, but then again, maybe just because I know what they all look like. If you didn't know, and if you just like, if you didn't know anything about tellies and you just knew what a decent guitar was, you would just, it would pass as a fake. So I'll end with a wee 3.5 minute jam. That's why I do these jams for just a long time. Just I start off and go, oh shit, I really don't know what I'm doing. But as you'll notice there, although there was a click track there, I was playing those notes all at the right time, or all where I meant to play them. I was playing the wrong notes for quite a lot of it because I hadn't worked out which notes are right. But that's kind of how I wing it when playing the guitar. It's kind of come back to bite me a bit in the bum when I'm playing in the band I'm in, Cranking House, just now, because I'm really good at playing, or not really good. I enjoy playing solos over 3 chords, but after like sort of 3 or 4 minutes, I'm right in there and I've got all the notes and stuff like that. Whereas if you're in a band, you don't get you don't get a 3-minute solo or a 5-minute solo to just learn to play over while they're just playing one thing. You know, it's got lots of bits in it, so I'm having to try and play chords and stuff, which is quite difficult. That's what I need to do. So tonight I'm going to sit and practice all the Cranking House songs, because we're back in the studio tomorrow night. Woo! Can't wait. Actually, I got just before we started off as a cover band, just doing sort of pub covers, and then over 6 months, something like that. Never actually got any gigs. Apparently, it's dead difficult to get gigs as a cover band. It's quite easy to get. You can get gigs as a tribute band to a specific artist. I'm in a Black Sabbath tribute band, and then like Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd or whatever it is. That's not too bad because people like that. But just being a sort of old-fashioned pub covers band, apparently there's no call for it. So you want to be an originals band and the singer was like, "Do you want to try doing original stuff?" And I was like, yeah. And then so we started writing a few songs. I think we did sort of 2, and then after that, we're now getting into sort of after Christmas. Sort of January time, we had 2 songs. I wrote one and the bass player wrote another one. The bass player's one was amazing. It was like G, C and D, or A, G and G, and it was like pure amazing. It was like after like sort of 3 minutes we could play it, and it was like, this is great, way. And then I wrote one that was a stupid funny time signatures and incredibly hard work. It took us about 6 weeks to learn it. I don't know whether it was actually worth it, but I mean, there's bits of it we go, oh, that's really interesting and it sounds really good, but it was hard work. And then, so I was talking to Pat the other day, I was like, actually, we fancy sticking up, I knew we'd done a couple other songs, you fancy sticking up like recordings if you've got of them, just so I can remember what the hell it went like. And I was expecting it to be like another 2 or 3 songs. It turns out we'd get 8, something like that, and it's like, wow, and it's like, I wrote 5 of them, like, oh shit. When I say wrote, I kind of did the riffs and the sort of choruses, the sort of structure-y thing, and it's pure amazing having a singer in the band. So it's like pure, words and phrasing, on you go, whatever you want. And he keeps telling me this, but it's great. I mean, Pat's brilliant. It's the things he comes out with as well. I mean, the song I did, it's like, I don't know, and you know, it's like a. It's got a really sort of strange rhythm to it, which I was you know, when I started doing it, it's happy. Yeah, I'm writing. I'm going. What do you think about me making it about like a cyborg taking over? You're like, pure fucking yes. So it's called Nexus 16. Like it's a sort of Blade Runner type thing. I was like, man, it's like that's exactly what I was writing it about. And then a couple of other ones. He did one. I did one. I was like, I think they're calling this one like Dragon Ships about Vikings. Like, yes. So it's like, even though I'm not writing any of the words or even giving him any ideas for what to do, he's coming out with these ideas, and it's just exactly the sort of thing I like. You know, I was like, he could come in and say, I'm writing this song about this girl I used to know. All right, okay. You know, like a normal song. No. What about zombies and racing cars and ships and Vikings and stuff like that. So that should be fun. I need to, in a couple of weeks' time, I'll do a live video from in the studio once we've nailed one of the songs. Get us an exposure. 52 minutes, that's definitely a new record. I wonder if I'll actually upload it. I wonder if actually YouTube will let me upload it. And I wonder if I'll ever do one of these sort of catchy up things again. I might. Rocking. So have a good week. I had a good week this week. Next week got videos coming on. Tomorrow's Monday. I'm in the studio, so shit. I've got to do a Telly Tuesday one tomorrow. I might restring, because I've been meaning to do it. I did do a video of it a couple of months ago. The Telly, I made it a door, but I was kind of like, I made it work with the strings on it. I'm about 5 years old, so I might restring both of that and do an actual proper demo of the double neck Telly. I've got another unboxing coming because I bought another bass yesterday. Yesterday on Friday. It's getting posted tomorrow morning by Parcel Force. So I think she said Parcel Force 48. So maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. Bit of an unboxing for a new special bass. It's not a wing bass because I've now got the full wing set. Although technically there is another wing. There's that one. Oh shit! There's another 2 really. There's one that's the same as that, but that's just like I've got a P bass pickup. There's also a Vulture 2, which is got like a P bass and a jazz bass pickup. I'm not counting that as being a different model. It's just like a variation. I'd argue that these aren't variations. No, these are different specs, as opposed to being just a variation. It's a different guitar, sort of. Well, also they've got different names. Basically, see if they'd called it like something other than a Vulture 2. You know, they'd maybe called it I don't know. They were going to say Vulcan Hawk. You know, like a Peregrine or a Condor or a, you know, something like that. I would maybe have bought it. So it's not one of them. Because I've already got now 54 minutes. It's like you're tempted to just make it up to an hour just to be annoying. See if anyone ever gets this far. No. So anyway, rock on, and I'll maybe put advice at the start. Maybe just start off a bottle of Bucky or something like that, or get yourself a couple of beers and sit down and. This might be the sort of thing that's quite good. See if you're. This is the sort of video I could watch if I was sitting, you know, working on doing frets or something like that, or doing wiring, because you don't need to look, and it's kind of like how I always feel. See when you're watching a film, when I'm doing that sort of, not boring but repetitive work, having a film on like Star Wars or something, or even a film that's sort of quite simple to follow. You can be sitting there working away, and then you hear explosions because you're listening to the dialogue, and if something exciting happens, you can look up and watch it. Whereas with this, you could probably do that. You could sort of listen to me until I say, oh, and this, when I, you'll hear when I pick up the bass, and I'll maybe look at that for 10 seconds, type thing. 55 minutes. Rock on, Kitsunis.